in just a second here, but let's show off the card art first.
Yeah,
We get
have to.
Sick.
All of the art for Bake Kujira is so inspired.
It's so cool. Like,
Whale.
you know, it's a skeleton whale. Like, how crazy can it really get? Really crazy.
And we talked about in the closer look blog post, and the art for Bake Kujira was something that we really wanted to push to the forefront, and that's something we do with all of our Smite gods, right? Is we want to say, hey, okay, what is this god? And if you look up the stories, you look up like what he is. He's a skeletal corpse. Like, what's going on with him that really pushes the boundaries? Well, that's for us to do. That's for the artists to really help us creatively influence, and I think it just shows so well in the card art and in game.
I completely agree. And for those of you who saw the closer look blog that was released, like you got a preview with the Mastery card art, which is one of the coolest card arts ever. Like, we do so many cool things, but you also got to see what the concept looked like. You know, we go through so much iteration to figure out what is the best look we can bring for this, and our teams are just always on top of it. It takes a village, as I think we said earlier, to both eat a giant sub sandwich and to create such a cool god. And
I think we talked about it somewhere as well. It's like for Bake Kujira, there were so many different variations of card arts that were just like, we would just want just do all of these. Like, that one will be the default, that one will be the master. Like, just keep it all.
Yeah, it's crazy that you can hit so many times in one like test sheet. So
that is a cool character.
There we are with the turnaround, super awesome looking.
And to be fair,
it's a giant.
Not
whale.
all character models in Smite end up being cool. So that's good work.
You know, we wanted to make sure
we
that
all
we didn't
remember
just look
Marty.
like any other stereotypical whale.
Right?
We wanted to see the different types, whether it's the Baleen or not, and kind of bring our vibes into it. Also, in the stories, right, he is just a bleached bone skeleton. We didn't want to do that either. We wanted to make sure that he felt more of a deity, more of like a mythological Leviathan, and how that would look alongside the other roster of our gods.
Well, I don't know. I think y'all knocked it out of the park.
A big creepy
and,
boy.
I'm excited to see this in game. I think we'll be good to go. So we're doing it?
Yeah, let's throw it back.
Lermy's gonna take us.
Throw it back.
Let her rip, Lerm. Let's. I'm excited. We
have a splash.
We're there.
We pushed some boundaries on Bake. Yeah, we definitely did. There are some very unique mechanics here for him that I'm really excited to.
Pretty simple.
I hope you know.
Yeah, that's a good jump.
That's
a good jump.
Jumps in the game.
Yeah, the animators had again a whale of a time, right?
A whale.
Okay, that's enough. It was fine, Clumsy, but that's the last one.
That's the last
You
one.
and Harris.
Right.
Well, I don't know about that.
That one is still
Okay.
alive. Yep, that's good.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah,
Yeah,
fire
let's do
away.
it. Show it off.
They still have the audio off, so I wonder if the audio really went broke on the
We're
game.
munching.
We're munching.
All right,
There he is.
so there's a lot of
Wonder
stuff
if
to
it really
see there,
broke.
but there's a lot of intricacy that it's easier to talk about, I think, than see right off the base. So let's start with some basic attacks. Like, you have the big AOE basic attack, it looks like.
Yeah, this is something we've never done before. Just a constant AOE basic attack. It's just a pulse around him. It will hit in the full 360 degrees, so enemies behind you will still be getting hit. This does mean that there were some particularly potent interactions with some basic attack items, so I am sad to inform the community that he will not proc basic attack item effects with his basics. But we made sure that we were still keeping these basics feeling really fun with a lot of other little mechanics that we'll be talking about as we continue to move on. But just really trying to, as I
know,
mentioned in
no
that closer
proc
look
items,
blog,
I know.
try and go down this route of
Guardian
what does a
auto attackers
solo
and
lane
not being
Guardian
able to proc
lane bully
auto
feel
attack
like,
items,
much like
you know,
Jormungandr does
every time, dude.
over there, and trying to let him be a lane
Every
dominator.
time.
Yeah.
And these basic attacks are a big part of that.
Yeah, and his kit intrinsically has mechanics that play around with the base attacks in a way that if you allowed things like item proc effects to also influence that, it would just kind of break his own gameplay flow.
Yeah.
Yes.
We wanted to make sure to contain it in a way that felt healthy for his kit.
Yep.
Got it. Well, I think the best way to explain that is to keep moving through the kit onto the passive. Curse of the Ghost Whale.
Yeah, so there are two kind of components of this passive. Let's start with the more passive component of the passive. Because he cannot proc basic attack item effects, but we wanted his basic attacks to be the focal point for a lot of his damage. Bake Kujira will convert a percentage of all protections from items and abilities into basic attack damage. So it is 30% of any protections that you buy or that you gain through abilities, like say maybe your AO1,
That's
just
really
a theory.
strong.
Yeah.
You are adding damage while gaining that tankiness that you need. So he's able to still buy his items that he wants to, but get that damage coming through really effectively.
Yeah.
Got it.
But that's not the only conversion that he does. This basic attack is capped at this speed that you see here, 1.25. He starts that at level 1. He will not gain any attack speed by leveling or by buying attack speed items.
Standard.
Instead, he will convert any attack speed that he gets from abilities or items into basic attack haste. So it's very simple conversion. 1% attack speed
Basic
equals
attack
1% haste. So if you build 50% attack speed, your basic attack movement penalty is 50% less than what it would normally be. So you still get that benefit. Shogun's Kasari, for example, being a really, really good item on him because he just gets less basic attack movement penalty. Right now, Lermy's got 100% additional attack speed from her items, and so can basic attack as she moves without slowing down whatsoever.
That's cool. Now, something's going on. We're gonna switch over and jump ahead just a little bit. So we'll get back to that and look at some of the additional recolors and the card arts for that real quick, and then we'll be right back in game. Just getting that audio fixed up. So we have the maiden card art, but there's also, as with a God release, you're gonna see a recolor that comes out as well. And that has a card art as well that we'll show off in just a sec. Also super duper cool. But
yeah, all of his card arts turned out awesome because there are lots
like,
of different
guys, we want to hear
types
the
of
audio. Fix the
gods that
audio.
we have in Smite, but
The
only
people
one
want
whale.
to hear
Only
the
one-
whale
only one,
mode.
like legitimate ghost whale.
Yeah.
Which is,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
really
look at
cool.
there it
that.
is.
That
team
color
got to go
scheme is insane.
crazy.
So it
Yep.
goes so hard.
Yep.
Not very fortunate for whoever is in that town getting rinsed.
No. But that's just sometimes how it has to go. His whole personality is that he's not a particularly malevolent, ghost whale, but if you've done wrong and deserve to be cursed by him,
Cursed by him.
he's not gonna lose a whole lot of sleep over it. So rest easy that this guy who's falling
big old-
had it coming.
He deserved it. He,
Like,
yeah,
what
he
does-
messed up. His
like,
karma's
what
getting
exactly,
aligned right
though?
now.
Yep.
That's
All right.
fucking-
Qualifies
Thank y'all
as
for the
like
patience.
done a
We'll get back
bad
to the
thing.
mastery
Like, if
card
I
here
steal
in
a
minute, but
candy
we're going
bar,
back in game. We got.
am I getting
figured out.
whaled on?
So we were talking
you know?
about the passive and the transfer.
I just gotta figure out where the line is.
Speed haste. So.
Right. So the more attack speed that you get, the less you are punished for basic attacking.
Basic
And because he has to basic attack for a lot
Mostly
of damage,
destroying sea
in
life.
team fights, we
You've
were
never
just
eaten
finding that he
seafood,
was just
right?
falling
Nope.
too far
Not
behind.
once.
Couldn't really catch up to people. This was a really clean way of doing it.
And it also just feels kind of thematic, right? He's
Feels
like
good.
this fish out of water, he's
Yeah,
but he's the control. He's controlling the environment around him, so he's just kind of
Getting
really
run
kind of
down
liberally
by
moving
a
across the
twerking
field.
Yeah,
whale.
it's
Swimming.
super awesome to see. Like you said, it's kind of bobbing through the fight. You're landing those attacks. You're maintaining your movement. So really cool and very whale-like.
Yeah.
And so those are the passive components of the passive. The one more active part is that you see this eye that's open and kind of looking around on his passive meter, and these
it's so
swirls underneath him. That means that his passive has not been procced. If an enemy god were to hard crowd control him, then they would become cursed. And that when an enemy has a curse debuff on them, they deal less damage to all targets. And we can talk more about that curse
Damage
as we get to the
reduction.
AO2, as that's kind of the primary applicator of the cursing, but you get it as well for ending up getting crowd control.
Getting the hard CC. All right, so let's move on to the first ability, Rough Waters.
Yeah, so rough waters. I was saying you might get protection some places, but he increases his attack's range. So you can see there it goes to 20 radius, so much larger. And he also gains a lot of attack speed. It's 50%, but
But what does that mean?
it's 50% haste.
There we go.
Hey.
So it doesn't attack any faster, but if you have 0% attack speed, you will have 50% haste from activating the AO1, and you will gain protections for each target that you hit, and that includes minions. So this allows him to really allow the wave to be grouped around him, and then pulse out that damage around the minions, gain a bunch of protections, which he converts into damage on his basic attacks, and allows him to trade very, very effectively. So this
That
is
looks
big
like a
way for him
strong
to
ability.
Continue to,
Actually, like,
build
really
those
strong.
protections, get a little bit of haste without having to itemize into it, and then be that link.
Kujira is all about
He was
zone
getting
control
a
and
lot
his
of
own area
protections, I
influence.
feel like.
Yep.
He wants to be where you are, and you don't want to be where he is.
Yeah, you want to stay away. And this plays into what you said earlier, too, about item procs messing with the flow, because his kit is very wrapped around get the buff, get the auto attack, get more damage from the stats. It's all this.
And there's more links coming in.
Yeah, so
Yep.
there's more links, so let's keep moving then. So Sonic Wave, ability number 2.
Yeah, so if the basic attacks are the primary function of the kit,
Yeah.
this is the secondary very part, where he just sends out this wave of water
Pantheon
and
is he?
air that slows enemies and applies a mark.
Japanese?
You see that little mark above enemy Odin's head.
Japanese, okay.
That means
Woo!
that they are going to deal reduced damage to all
Sometimes you're either
targets
right
for
or
6 seconds.
racist. So.
Now, the key
dangerous
part about
game.
Baki Kujira's kit is that he can use the AO2, put it on cooldown, and then anytime he basic attacks an enemy, a portion of that cooldown is refunded so that he can then reapply the mark to enemies. So
I'll look at that actual cooldown going through.
Exactly. That is the real cooldown. Lermy's not got cheats on in this exact moment.
It is.
It is every basic attack you hit on an enemy god reduces the cooldown by 1 second, and that can stack multiple times, as you see here.
Yeah.
And if you hit a minion, then that's 0.1 seconds, because if it were 1 second, he would just have it up instantly in the middle of the
But it still happens, right? It's not completely exempt from hitting minions. If you're doing this in lane, that's part of that kind of lane bully thing that Agro was talking about, is that you're doing this team fights, you're increasing your range in team fights, you're getting your 2s and your curses on multiple enemies.
He is.
Yeah.
My dude wants to do some damage. AOE auto attack style, you know?
It's almost a good thing.
Great. He's very good.
He is, in fact, based around his auto attacks. Straight up.
And you'll see that curse mark becomes amplified. So if they're cursed already, and then you curse them again, then the slow is doubled. The slow is not 6 seconds, it's only 2.
Yeah.
But the damage reduction that they deal is also doubled. So it can get up, you can reduce their damage output by 20% at max rank for 6 seconds. That is an incredibly potent curse to be putting on your enemies.
Yeah.
And as I was saying earlier with the passive, if they already have a curse mark on them and then they hard crowd control you, that will amplify their mark to the stage 2 of that curse. So we really wanted to lean into this idea of he's cursing, he's this constant plague upon his enemies. They're just less effective when he's around, and it's because he can so easily spread this damage reduction mark to all of his enemies.
Wow.
Yeah. The protection that he gains from the one, it's something that requires him to be in the fight. In minion waves, sure, he's just got one god generally to deal with in solo lane. But if he needs to get in there and fight multiple gods at the same time, he's putting himself in a precarious position.
Yeah.
So getting those
curse
protections
you,
from the
curse
AO1,
everyone.
and then that playing into the passive itself is just providing him more damage. And then the 2 is there to really contribute to more damage reduction for the enemy. So he's got ways of increasing his damage and decreasing the enemy's damage at the same time while being within them.
Yeah, I think that's going to play into some really interesting positions in team fights, especially as people start to learn and get into high-level play, because, you're using that auto-attack movement penalty reduction to weave through the enemy team. You're trying to apply damage reduction to the back line, and, you're stacking as you move through people. It's going to be really interesting to watch Baki Kujira navigate a team fight, I think. So.
Yeah, he's at his core very, very simple. Lots of large area, AoE basic attacks. He's going to clear the way very easily. But getting that locked in, like I'm constantly applying my mark to the right enemy at the right time, making sure that I'm trying to
spinning
get
so
into the middle of the team fight to hit a bunch of basics so that my sonic wave cooldown can come back up. He's got a very high skill
Max
ceiling.
DPI Odin's out here, dude.
It's something that I'm always excited about.
Reducing damage output from anybody is good, but I think you'd rather hit the on her than the Kepri if you're in a team fight. So. Well, cool. Well, to help him get to that back line, we have ability number 3, Twisting Dive.
Yeah, Twisting Dive's a fun one. It's a little twist and a dive, as you see. It will stun and push enemies to travel with him. And what feels really great about this ability is that whether you hit them at the very beginning of the dive or at the very end, they will still get pushed to within your basic attack range. So you'll never push them away from your own potential damage. And it does allow him to set up really, really nicely for things like ganks, where if you can slow them with Sonic Wave, then walk behind them and twisting dive them towards your tower. It's a pretty potent CC tool. And it's not just single target, because you see that circle right before he leaves. It's one of our favorite shapes that we don't get to use that often, the lollipop targeter, where it does damage in that circle around him and then damages enemies that he ends up pushing with him as well.
Got it. That's super cool. And again, I love it's a whale. I love all of the spinny animation.
Do the whale thing.
You got to do whale things.
We wanted to make sure when developing a kit that we play up on the visuals, but you also have an interesting gameplay, right?
Yeah.
So that's always what it's going to be about. He's doing whale things while being a nuisance in the background.
He's doing whale things.
Whale nuisance. So
doing whale things.
Last but not least, and this one's a little crazy. Even I don't fully understand what's going on here. So we have Yokai's Lament, the ultimate. Let's dive into this.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's a big old area.
It's a big old area. It was very fun seeing people's guesses for what the unique debuff would be.
A lot of people you left just enough hints for people to get it right as well.
Yep. So it is a big donut around Baki, and on that outer ring, of the donut, the bigger area, that is time dilation only for enemies. It will not speed up your allies, but it is a time dilation for enemies. We really, like Clumsy said, we were talking about making a whale. What would you do? Whale song really came into play. You know, that's a big part of it.
It is time dilation.
Begins to sing, slows down that time on the outer edges, but it isn't like Olarun where you walk into Olarun and you just get stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
It applies stacks of time dilation.
Okay.
Gain over time and then fall off over time.
That's really important as well because this time dilation area, it's moving with him, right?
Yep.
And he can move a lot at sometimes as well. So we want to make sure that if you're constantly going in and out of this area, it
That's
doesn't
a
feel like
massive
you're just moving around the mud instantly on
area,
a dime.
dude.
But it's something that stacks on and stacks off.
Exactly. So enemies that might not want to get time dilated, which I imagine is most of them, you don't get time dilated on the inner circle. So that seems like a good place to go, except unless you don't want to get eaten by the whale, because he gets bonus basic attack damage to during that time. Basic attack range automatically expands to cover that inner circle in its entirety. And you take increased damage from all sources, not just Baka Kujira.
Oh.
That means you're taking increased damage from him. He gets increased base attack damage during that time, and it's fairly significant as you get into later stages.
Moving Olarun
Isn't bursty. It isn't like, oh man, he just hit me twice and killed me. But
that ability is going to be so strong around cheap
chunk,
fights, man.
Chunk.
Fire
on the inner
Giant
portion of that.
Phoenix
It feels really, really
defenses,
gratifying
like,
for him.
just a massive
Smite
area
makes you
that
ask
kind
all
of
kinds
slows you
questions,
down and
like, would I
kind of
rather
come
be
back, you know?
really slow or eaten by a whale?
It's not just the slow, it's also going to
yeah,
be
what a
the
question.
no easy
increase
answer.
and
Something you have to
decrease
figure out
over
for yourself,
time
in game for
that
sure.
Oh,
messes
that's
up your
great.
timing and stuff, too.
And one more thing about Yokai's Lament.
All
This
right.
was something that big shout out to Kellen and the audio team for getting this in. You're experiencing a whale song so strong that it's distorting all of your abilities, everything like that.
It's slowing time.
It would also affect your audio, wouldn't it? Because it's the song that's doing it. So
Don't tell me.
your audio, it gets this underwater, elongated, bassy sort of change to it. And it really was like the perfect little flavor cherry on top for, those are things that we love to try and find to do that takes
See,
that
the microphone
getting
was
hit
role
by
play.
that
Now you'll
ability
know
to
what
the
it
next
sounds
level.
like.
Yeah,
You're
I
welcome.
mean, I can hear it now. The way our audio team is, slowed time, put it underwater and stretch it. All the sounds.
Yep.
Just all the sounds. So
It's so
that's so like our audio team. They're not like, well, job's done. They finish a job and then they stare at it and they're like, job done. What more to do for job to make job better?
Yep.
They're just, you can't stop them from innovating with stuff like this. So man, shout out to them.
It's a good
And
clap.
shout out to y'all. This is an
a good
incredible
clap.
looking god. Guardian lover myself. I was immediately attracted to that. But it's another beast. We have a giant whale in Smite. We have the whale songs. We have there's just a lot to look forward to. And the utility in this is going to be so cool.
Yeah, he's a really his playstyle really developed really nicely over the course of his development. Where we really wanted to make sure that he felt like this inevitable force that's kind of plaguing your team. He's not zooming through the team fight or anything like that, but he's just kind of floating there, doing his thing, and if you're around him,
Yeah.
He
things
seems
probably
like he
aren't
could
going
work
as-
support.
A little cursed.
And a huge
giant
shout-out
debuff
to
area
the entire
and a
team,
stun,
of course, but
plus
particularly
decent
to
clear.
Nate on the programming team.
He
did a
seems
great
like he
job
would
on
work
it.
in support.
Diana from Effects and Basir from QA.
You can tell that they've designed him for
those
solo,
teams
but I see
really,
no
really
reason
stepped
why
up
his
and
kit
made
wouldn't
this
work as a
process
support
a lot
either,
smoother.
Supports want lane clear.
Well, I mean, I always love to hear shout outs for the team because there are so many people. We could sit here all day with a list. So, cool. So we jumped around a little bit.
He kinda sounds like he could jungle.
Let's dive back into the card arts for some of the other
Pull 2 or 3
skins we're
camps,
releasing with
big
this,
fat
including the
autos,
Ascended
gank with your 3,
skin
push
for
people
Baka
away.
Kujira.
I mean, he kind of seems like he could jungle.
I love the
We love the purples, right?
Yeah.
So cool. And
That doesn't
like,
change.
I'm not mad to see a little lightning bolt in there.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I'm a cool.
You
guy.
didn't, sneak any of the effects there.
No, I didn't put that feedback in there, but I wasn't saying
Well, you
take
were
that out.
thinking
You
it,
know what
yeah.
I mean? Yeah, exactly.
I don't know though. It kind of looks like the lightning bolt isn't really doing much. So
Oh, no, that's a tickle.
No, yeah,
counter.
he does.
conduit
Zeus is
for it.
not very good in Baka.
That's a good thing about no flesh and a lot of blubber at the same time. Like,
Yep.
Really insulated, really good against the lightning.
No doubt.
So
I can
again,
see him-
this is
I
the
can see him
Ascended
working
skin,
support,
part of the,
solo,
year
and
10
jungle.
Pass. And then last but not least, you may have seen it on the closer look blog, but we have the Mastery skin card art. which is just
Oh, I love that one.
I love
the
it
perspective
so much.
is incredible.
Yeah, the flipped perspective, coming
Yeah.
the sky at the bottom of the card art and him.
I did see people
coming
asking it first.
I know,
Like,
yeah,
which
he's-
direction
Mobile
he's going.
gods are
Gotta think
reaching
unplayable
out of the
versus this
water
guy.
and
He didn't seem
just
to
heading
have
towards the
CC
sun, but
immunity in his
flipping
kit,
this perspective,
which as a
like,
guardian is pretty weird, right? I don't think his ulti made him CC
unbelievable
immune.
is my wallpaper.
Now I do have to ask
No
you.
CC
very
immunity is
serious
different
card art lore
for a
question.
guardian.
Yeah,
Did that guy deserve it? The dude
Yep.
on the boat, he did.
100%.
His
100%.
3
Okay,
gave
no doubt.
knock-up
got
immunity,
it.
but
So
that's
he,
it,
like,
yeah.
bad dude right there.
He kicked the kitten before he got on. his
That's not a
I'm
lot.
not-
Process
Liberty-
of trying to kill fish.
True.
The legal ramifications of saying exactly what he did, like means that I can't. But Bake was in the right here.
Bake was in the right here. All right, I trust you. I trust you. You know Bake better than I do. So, all right. Well, we did it. We made it to
Yeah.
the end of year 10. This is just, it blows my
Unbelievable.
mind.
That's
He
crazy.
did make it
I
to
know.
the
That's-
end of
that's
year
just-
10.
For like 5 days, I've just been thinking like,
Oh,
wow,
Dandy, your
year 10,
microphone.
so many crazy changes, all the seasons. the
It's
map
working
changes,
so
the new
hard right
gods,
now.
and Worlds is right around the corner. So I can't express how excited I am, how fun it's been to be with all of y'all here for this entire year. I'm looking forward to year 11 and what comes next, and I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you as I possibly can at Worlds in January. It's going to be mind-blowing. So make sure to stick around. We're going to have Dev Insight right after this. So, bring your questions, start thinking about stuff you want to know about Bake or any of the changes. Bring those questions in and make sure to talk to these wonderful designers here. They're going to help you figure everything out that you might not have caught on to. Make sure to check out the patch notes. They've been live this whole time, and they have all the details and numbers and everything if you want to start doing the math, figure out how to get that, how to prove them wrong, get that Bake Kujira build online. And also, make sure to watch out for PTS. Get in there and send us all of that feedback so that we can start prepping. Because we're writing it out to Worlds now. We're giving pros time to prepare, but year 11 is right around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Not
been
far.
we've been chefing on it, and y'all's feedback gives us so much to work with. And like we did with year 10, we're looking to make year 11 even better. Hard to do. I know you think that's crazy, but they're back there working on it. So thank y'all so much for
It'll
being
be
here
interesting
for
to see what they decide to
13
do with year
update shows
11.
this year.
Yeah.
And I
All
can't wait to
things
see y'all at
considered.
Worlds. Thanks everyone.
See you there.
Okay, couple of things. One, balance was pretty good. Warriors are definitely coming back. Mage solos are definitely getting hit with a hammer, for sure. So that almost guaranteed is going to change the solo lane meta. I mean, they were not light changes. They were pretty heavy-handed. Combination of like nerfing some generically extra strong mage solos plus the general mage solo build, and then buffing weak warriors and then buffing general warrior item builds should bring back the warriors into solo lane. A little bit worried it could just bring back a little warrior solo, like Surtur is kind of a warrior solo right now, or warrior jungle that people are doing right now, so that could be a problem, but we'll see. Somebody link me the patch notes. So for those of you that missed the patch notes, let's go over kind of the important stuff here. So protection conversion on Whale Boy, on Gale, is 30%, and then he gets the 1% attack speed conversion on the passive. Very strong passive. This is the imbues himself with magical energy. When activated, he gets increased basic attack range and reduced movement penalty, and he gets stacks of protections for each enemy hit. Up to 10 stacks of protection. Max 10 stacks, 6 per. That's 120 protections at max rank. You get 60 of each. What's up, Anonymous? Thank you, friend, for the 4 months. Plus, you get the 50% reduction, and it lasts for 5 seconds. So you can get some crazy protections. And reminder that those protections that you get give you damage. That's right. Protections equals damage. All right. Sonic Wave. This is his curse. They're slow to damage, and they deal reduced damage. Yet the slow is doubled if they get hit by multiple times. His basic attacks reduce his ability's cooldown by 1 second when hitting an enemy god. That would be crazy. If it stacked multiple times, that would be literally nuts. So he gets 260 base damage, so not a lot of magical power scaling on this. Not at all. But then he gets 10% damage reduction, but that stacks twice. So he can get 20%. Yep, there's the amplified. And the slow is 15 for 2 seconds. So that's a big ol' slow. And then twisting dive. Base damage is nice on this. 240 and 175. So he's got literally no magical scaling. Like none. Like there's literally zero reason to build him power. Absolutely no magical scaling. But good base numbers on that. It's over 400. And it scales up to a 1.5 second stun. That's a significant stun duration for an ability that didn't look super hard to hit. I mean, he's a whale. Then his ultimate lasts for... How long does it last for? 5 seconds. He gets the increased basic attack range. You get the time dilation. It's a max stacks of 4. It's 10% slower per stack. So up to 40% time dilation. He gets up to 60% bonus attack damage. And nearby enemies take an increase 15%. And it scales to 90 seconds, bro. That's so strong. That's so strong. That kit on paper is nuts. And he should be kind of easy. I mean, his entire kit is based around an auto attack that is a circle. You know, not even like an aimed circle. Like just a circle. So, I mean, cooldown, protections, and attack speed maybe? 50% attack speed is probably what you'll be aiming for because this gives you that 50, right? So if you get 50% attack speed, you basically, with your one proc, have no auto attack penalty because you don't want to over scale that. That won't be great. You just want to be able to get it to the point, you know? And then be able to focus on something like cooldown to have it up more often and more often. Plus a ton of protections, obviously. You want a ton of protections because 30% scaling. So massive protection items on this guy. You can't proc auto attack items, unfortunately. So, you know, all of that type of stuff is out. I do wonder if you can proc like an Archdruid's Fury, which technically procs off of your auto, but like that type of item would be really good if it worked. I don't think it does though, because it is still an auto attack proc, so I don't imagine that it works. Yep, all of the skins in the world. All of the skins. Some UI issues. Hey! They're fixing the cuckoo audio bug. That's neato. They're fixing it. Nice. That's nice, dear. Increase the maximum negative cooldown reduction cap to 40%. Huh. Okay. It's annoying, but interesting. So, they have the list of all the gods that are going to be banned in Duel. Anhur, Hades, Huyi, Bastet, Uller, Anubis, Baka, Poseidon, Mama, Skadi, Freya, Raijin, Kronos, Jingwei, Arachne, Pele, AMC, Morgana, Set, Hebo, Ao Kuang, and Hera will all be default banned in Duel. Love it. Love it. I actually might check out Duel just for the shiggles. Because that could be kind of fun now that people have to actually play gods that aren't necessarily, like, meta, you know? Obviously, it drops down to the next tier of meta, but it might be less annoying. My chapstick. I like that change. All right. Then into the changes. Typhon's got nerfed. This is really the only mage item change that also affects mid lane because Typhon's Fang was so stat efficient and it gave so much power, and even off the scaling with this, even if you just bought it by itself, it was basically the best pen item for mid laners. If you were a god like a Scylla that paired it with a Polynomicon, it was by far and away the best pen item. for mid laners. So this does actually affect mid lane builds. But all of these are aimed at solo lane. Vamp Shroud, nerfed on the sustain front. Blood-Soaked Shroud, nerfed on the sustain. Enchanted, nerfed on the sustain, which means Pythag's nerfed on the power and the sustain, right? Breastplate of Valor, nerfed on the sustain and the protections. So they're really trying to get mages the heck out of solo lane. They're trying so hard, you know? They're just trying so hard to get them the heck out of dive. They're like, get out of my solo lane. You know? Go on. Get. Then they're buffing Berserker's Shield, which is fine because it is a terrible item. They're buffing Gladiator's Shield, and this is a funny one because Gladiator's Shield doesn't get bought a lot in solo lane, but it's actually an incredibly good support item. Like, incredibly good support item. It became a mainstay in a lot of, like, ranked carry support builds, you know? I do think it could come back into solo lane builds, but supports are also really going to like that Gladiator's shield change a lot. Failing's getting buffed. That's fine. Nobody was ever buying that. Pestilent is a big one. 100 cost decrease, and they gave it HP 5. Pestilent is a nutty stat efficient item. The passive on Pestilent is amazing for hurting sustain. And now it's quite cheap, and it has HP 5 for the laning phase. So if you're going against another mage solo, building Pestilent as your first item as a warrior, like, hard shuts them down. This change, combined with all the other things, is actually what kills the mage solo, because you could just buy straight up Pestilence, and they'll have no sustain, and they will not do any damage to you. Archdruid Fury is getting more protections, which is nice. This is actually a good damage item for solo laners. He builds up quite a large auto attack when you get that full build. HP 5 on Dawnbringer because it's the patch of HP 5. And then Warrior's Axe got 5 power. Warrior's Axe as a 20 power item is going to be a hard sell to not buy, in my opinion, in solo. 20 physical power on a starter item that is a tank starter item is crazy for the laning phase. Crazy for the laning phase. So, while Bluestone was still going to have that tick clear and stuff, I mean, you combine that Warrior's Axe sustain with some of the other HP 5 changes, there's going to be a lot of sustain for Warriors now, which is, you know, the problem, that mages were just out sustaining them like crazy. Alpooch, nerfing his sustain, because that was the mage problem. Athena, her everything was the problem, so they're nerfing her cooldowns, longer taunt cooldown, a longer ultimate cooldown, and decreased HP 5, because why not? Literally no idea why they even bothered with that. The other stuff was fine. You know? Chernobog getting an ultimate nerf because it was one of the best abilities in the game still, so longer cooldown, less effective. Mama's getting a scaling nerf. They reduced the mark damage on Madame Fangs, and they decreased the bonus scaling, so hopefully she has less pop on you. Still going to be a good god. Still going to have a terrible win rate because she is too difficult for people to play. Poseidon getting nerfed. I do think that this hurts mid lane Poseidon as well. They're decreasing his tide damage, and they're also increasing the cooldown on Trident and decreasing the damage. Poseidon almost never gets played in mid right now because solo laners have been snatching him up because he's such a good Vamp Shroud user over there for the sustain. But I'm not sold. I'm not sold if he needed the additional nerfs on top of this with all the mage changes, but he's going to be hurting in mid too. Ryzen, a little bit of base damage. Once again, another mage that was being abused in solo. Ratatasker, going to have to cool down on his Nut Blast, taking some damage off of that. To be fair, the only acorn you've bought on Ratatasker for the last 3 years is Big Nut Blaster because of how good Acorn Blast is as a skill. So that makes sense that he's getting nerfed. Achilles getting buffed, which is one of the scariest things you can do in Smite. They decreased the combat dodge at the start of the game, which is going to really help his solo lane clear. And then they also gave it so he's got 4 heals at all ranks up there for Radiant Glory. Bologna getting a small buff on Scourge, which is going to help her sustain a little bit in the lane, but not that big of a deal. And then they gave her 50 base damage on her ultimate at the end of the game, 10 per level. Tyr getting a change that I'm not sure was necessary, but they gave him 2 seconds off of his Fearless cooldown and 5% scaling. This change specifically is jungle Tyr territory, right? In the solo lane, PTS is up. Perfect. We'll switch right over after we're done with this. Jungle Tyr likes to level up Fearless first. Solo Tyr levels up the 2 first for the sustain and lane. So this is a downright straight jungle Tyr buff. Mulan making it easier to level up with her stuff. Just make her a little bit more efficient earlier, because once her abilities are leveled, cool god. Before her abilities are leveled, not so cool god. Gilgamesh getting HP 5 at all times, because this is the HP 5 patch. Also increasing his lane minion damage. That HP 5 combined with HP 5 and items, combined with, Warrior's Axe, a lot of sustain over in solo. Loki got buffed because they threw a dart at the dartboard and they said, why not? And they gave him a little bit more vanish damage. Raven apparently also on that dartboard, getting slightly more scaling on his 1 and his ultimate. Raven hits very hard, and he's also a really good Erendite user, which is an item that also has started to come into the meta for a lot of assassins in the jungle. Start messing around with Erendite as like a second item. A lot of people are doing their Boomba's Dagger / Eye of the Jungle into Jotuns and then Erendite. A lot of CDR, a lot of power, a lot of damage early. Sylvanas is now no longer playing by the rules, so he no longer has diminishing return on that Nature's Grasp. He has decided the rules do not apply to him. He is a tree. Gab getting more damage because they want Last to keep playing the game into the new year, so they're going to go ahead and give him extra shockwave damage in Stone Shield CDR. Apollo is the dollar general version of Chernobog, so they're buffing him. A little bit more power on So Beautiful, and also decreasing the mana cost on Across to the Sky. Chernobog can fly across the entire game for free. Apollo should probably be able to take his chariot in a slow ride. Medusa also getting mana changes because for some reason her mana costs were crazy, and also getting a slight damage increase to Viper Shot, which does help her 1v1. Chronos getting a buff as well, increased base attack speed, which is going to help him on his scaling because everything in Smite scales off of your base attack speed. So small changes here have ramifications throughout the entirety of the game, and giving his cooldown on Accelerate a little love. And then Aggro finally gets his Zeus buff, and they're going to give him some extra base damage on Zeus Ultimate, specifically as you get later into the game. Early game is still just 100, but late game, going to be a full 60 extra damage per proc of Lightning Storm. A lot of extra damage for Zeus. A lot of extra damage for Zeus right there. All right, now we're going to need everybody to go get their PTS updated. It's time.
Thank you for supporting the Twitchiest community. If you'd like to see more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and always hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you for all your support and have a Twitchin' day, y'all.